So now we'll have this presentation. The presentation title is Protecting Private Information, Current Attitudes Concerning Privacy Policies. And the presenter is Teresa.
Hi. Don't tell the guys in charge over here, but seriously, I didn't really want to be the one preventing y'all from going to coffee breaks. So now that we're back, I'm Teresa Williams. I'm here from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, along with my advisor, Dr. Nitin Agarwal, and another advisor also worked on the paper, Dr. Rolf Wiggin. This paper is, wrong button, sorry. The presentation is based on the outline of the paper, so I'm going to go through basically why this paper, what some of the literature has to say, how I did a survey, what the results were, and what the conclusions are. So, introducing privacy, and I'm looking at this in terms of privacy versus confidentiality. And privacy, classic definition by Alan Weston in the late 60s, basically just means that your information belongs to you and you should have control over it. Whereas confidentiality is from, some people might think it's the same thing, but confidentiality is the protection of information, whether it's yours or somebody else's or a company's, from unauthorized people. And not necessarily the same thing. Information confidentiality usually involves encryption or some other technical solution, whereas privacy is almost always a function of policy. So the question that I worked on answering, what are the current attitudes of individuals towards the published privacy policies, and have those attitudes changed in the last 10 years? So to answer this, I did an online survey about privacy and privacy policies. There's a lot of literature concerning privacy, concerning all sorts of things about privacy. In 2011, two researchers did a study of over 500 articles on privacy and grouped them into 5 categories. And one of their categories, information privacy attitudes, is where this paper happens to fit. In the U.S., there is no existing federal law that concerns privacy policies or concerns overall privacy. There's HIPAA laws, there's financial laws, there's laws about telecommunication data, but there is no overall privacy policy. There is a Privacy Act that was enacted in 1974, but it really only deals with federal agencies. So federal agencies are required to follow this Privacy Act, but nobody else is. In the European Union, however, does have active privacy legislation that was established in 2002, and they're still continuing to work on it. In 2005, the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania did a study on understanding of privacy policies. The conclusion of their study was that 75% of the people believed that if there was a privacy policy, their information was private. That the simple fact that a website had a privacy policy meant that their information was private once they gave it to the website. And that's not true. In 2010, GameStation, which was a UK company selling video games and other stuff, on April Fool's Day, put a clause in their online privacy policy terms and conditions that gave GameStation ownership of your immortal soul. The policy literally said that that's what it was going to do, and 88% of the customers on that one day, about 7,500 people, gave away their immortal soul, even though there was a clause that they could have opted out. I'm not going to read this, but this is basically part of what that policy said. So that here, for now and forevermore, your immortal soul. And you agree to surrender your immortal soul and any claim within 5 days. and we reserve the right to serve such notice in 6-foot-high letters of fire, but no damage, you can't claim damages because of the fire, and or you can opt out. If you don't want to grant it, click the link below. Some people did, and they got a 5-pound voucher good at the website, but 7,500 people did not. ToySmart was a U.S. company that filed for bankruptcy in 2000. They had, because they were selling toys and dealing with children, even though not directly with the children, they had promised their customers that they would not sell any of their data. But in 2000, they filed bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy trustees put this database of information up for sale. It ended up with the FTC suing to block the sale, and the sale actually went through to a company who agreed to destroy the data. So it was sold, but then it was destroyed. After this, in the U.S., about 23 bills were introduced in Congress that had to do with privacy. Among them, the Privacy Commission Act, the Consumer Privacy Protection Act, a total of 23. All of these died in committee, primarily because of September 11th. So all of these bills, somewhat as a result of ToySmart, ended up being proposed, and because September 11 happened in 2001, they died in committee, and instead the U.S. Patriot Act was enacted. And as most of us know, that was not good for privacy. Another study by Lori Cranner said that if everyone who went to the web once a year read every privacy policy of the websites they went to, that it would take a total of 53.8 billion hours. And translated into dollars, that's $781 billion a year. Earlier, someone said that a person would spend a month reading all the privacy policies that they were involved to. So if you extrapolate that out to all the people for a year, $781 billion, except that we don't read them. So to gather the information, I did an online survey. I used Google Forms for that. The link to the survey was distributed to personal email lists, to Facebook, to LinkedIn, as well as some local membership of some security groups that I'm involved in. And I had 150 people respond to the survey and complete it. Ideally, I should have had closer to 400 people to get a true, or to get better margin of error. So I ended up with 95% confidence level with a 7.97% margin of error. And then truly it wasn't a random sample because of the way it was distributed. But it still gave some valuable information. The survey had 10 questions plus 4 demographic questions in one field for comments. And I also used an R script to generate a completely random sample of the same exact size to be able to tell whether my responses were truly random or not. The random sample did not correlate to itself, and it was completely different from the true sample. So what did we find out? To the question, how often do you read privacy policies on websites? About 30% sometimes to always read them, and 70% don't, which held pretty true with the 2005 study by Annenberg. Oh, that looked better on the screen, on my screen. In your opinion, what is the value of a privacy policy on a website? Ranging from worthless, extremely worthless, to extremely valuable. Most people actually thought they were pretty valuable, even though they don't read them. And I apologize for the messy words. Same question that Annenberg asked. Based on your knowledge, if a website or company has a privacy policy, may they sell your information? And only 28% said yes. Okay. And some of the reasons why this might be, Well, actually, why don't people read privacy policies? Comments from the survey were they're too long, they're too complicated, and they really don't say what they mean. So one of the things that the privacy policies almost always say is that they will share your information, or they may share your information. They're not going to share it, they're going to sell it. And I don't know about you, but to me, sharing, selling, they're not the same thing. So we think sharing is a good thing. We don't think about them selling it for profit. Someone mentioned earlier how privacy policies are actually legal documents written by lawyers. And yes, they are. And they're to protect that company, not you. So the readability of the text, it's all written in lawyerese. It's very difficult to read. There's misconceptions about not just online privacy policies, but offline policies as well. There's studies that show that people don't know that Pizza Hut, when you order a pizza, can sell your information that you like, you know, sausage and mushroom pizza or something. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about what privacy policies mean. Some of the other future work that we are going to be involved in is based on collective context-based privacy model. The original paper on this was presented at PASAT in 2010 and actually won the Best Paper Award, and was also just published in the Journal of Ambient Intelligence and Humanized Computing. So I'll give credit to my advisor and some of his other students. The context-based privacy model, or collective context-based privacy model, is based on collective intelligence and saying that privacy policies can be based on what your friends are saying for their privacy policy. I have a friend that really knows about security. What does that person have for their privacy settings? And maybe I should use them. And are planning a study utilizing a Facebook application. Questions? And thank you.
I have a question. So in your presentation, you mentioned like it's very difficult for people to follow the privacy policies. So then, are there any like suggestions for the future? What can be done?
You know, suggestions for making privacy policies more readable, one of them would be to make them not so legalese, but the lawyers aren't going to like that. There is work being done at Carnegie Mellon on a nutrition label for privacy. Just like now today, if you go to the grocery and you buy something, in a short synopsis on the back, you can see the calories and the fat and the sodium and all that stuff. And they're working on a way of putting information about privacy. So if you go to a website, you'll get the equivalent of a nutrition label, except it would be what kind of information they collect and what they're going to do with it. And they're doing current work with that, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yes, sir?
So I had a quick question. So you mentioned that there's work being done at CMU on the privacy nutrition level, but one of the biggest limitations of privacy policies is that a company can change that privacy policy after the fact. So nutrition labels are fundamentally different because if you have a label that doesn't accurately reflect whatever there is, you can get sued for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that with a privacy policy.
No, you can't.
Even if it is more
not in the U.S. anyway.
So I'm curious if you have anything to speak on that end. Like, how would you distribute liability for privacy protection amongst different stakeholders? Because that would encourage people to read privacy policies.
I think on another level, which would lead into that, is the issue of awareness. And I don't really want to use the word education, but the survey that I did, I mentioned it was not truly random. it was heavily on the educated side, and still only 30% were reading privacy policies, and most of them said they couldn't understand them. So yes, there should be repercussions if someone doesn't do what they say they're going to do. And I'm not a lawyer. Don't really want to be a lawyer. But I don't know if there's not existing law that if somebody doesn't do what they say they're going to do, that you might could do something about it if you can afford a lawyer. So, Anne?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm just thinking, Senator Warren made away with a lot of similar problems in the finance area.
Mm-hmm.
There must be a model that could be pushed on the policy end, because privacy is losing its meaning for everybody.
Agreed. That's an interesting thought. Haven't really thought about it, but I think it's worth thinking about. And a lot, of course, in the U.S. at least, we're reactive. We react to, so a lot of the financial legislation that happened because of Enron and happened because of some of the trading scandals and things. And so, are we going to have a huge privacy scandal of some kind that we haven't already had before they do something? I don't know. But that's definitely an interesting thought.
I have some ideas we can talk about.
Okay. And you said something that made me think of something, but I can't remember what it was now.
Teresa, one of the answers you were hinting at, the idea of collective intelligence, collective mobilisation, to shine a light onto this towards crowdsource and sharing some of the organisations into adhering to better practice.
Well, that, and also just utilizing different platforms to say, well, these are what you could do. And, your friends are doing it, why don't you do it too? Or something like that. It's early in my work in that area. So.
Any other questions?
I'm thinking there must be some way to sort of either classify or put these agreements into some sort of framework, which makes them it's a first order approximation of what this means. It may not be the exact legal approximation, but that would you could classify it as red, orange, green kind of thing.
True.
Right. So,
Okay.
And then that can be legislated down from the federal level as you have to report this to consumers when you get.
So we could have, in addition to the nutrition label model, we could have a Department of Defense model with different colors as far as, how do they deal with privacy on this site. And of course, part of it would be getting anyone to agree to putting machine-readable information. Of course, they're supposed to be doing that somewhat right now, as far as cookies go anyway, on their website so that something could pick it up and then, flash the color at you. But that's interesting.
It's like a natural language processing kind of problem that we're making our way into.
Yeah.
A number of things are starting to get into semantics.
Yeah. Yes. So. Air quality. Okay. Air quality.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
Nice.
Thank you for the questions.
Thanks for the big argument.